The High Court in Johannesburg will today hand down its judgment in the MK Party's application to block the upcoming Judicial Service Commission's interviews. Now, on Friday, the party gave reasons why it wants the JSC sittings, which start on Monday, to be postponed. This comes after the Western Cape High Court ruled 2 weeks ago that impeached Judge Hlophe should be barred from participating in the candidate selection process. On Monday, the MK Party sought to have the gathering postponed, but was turned down by the JSC on the basis that the court had contemplated the consequences of Hlophe's absence in their ruling. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo has that report.
Lawyers representing the MK Party and Hlophe have argued that it makes no sense to prevent him from participating in Monday's Judicial Services Commission sitting when his membership on the body remains in place. They've put forward an argument that Hlophe's constitutional rights would be impeded as he can't exercise his political duties as an elected member of parliament. The main request was to postpone the JSC sitting pending the handing down of Part B of the Western Cape High Court judgment, which is looking at the rationality of the decision by the National Assembly to designate Hlophe to begin with.
So we're saying three things. We're saying postpone for 2 or 3 months, pending one of three things. And again, even this is misconstrued. We say either and the Lordship will find that in our notice of motion at 023. The final determination of the appeal against the orders of the judgment of the full court, your Lordship knows what that means. Yeah. The second one, we say the final determination of Part B of the applications pending in the Western Cape. Let me pause there. Both of those things, my Lord, can conceivably be done within a month or two. I mean, if everyone commits to it, quite frankly. Because the pleadings are there might be a bit of supplementation here and there and so on, exchange of heads. We all know case management could make sure that those cases, I don't want to be overly optimistic, ahead, let's say by November or early December. But the third one is even lighter, my Lord. We say the final determination of the main application set out in Part BB. Now that case, my Lord, can happen next week, quite frankly, and it can be done, because that case is about one thing only. It's about the exercise that your Lordship and I have just done now, which is looking at that letter.
The other argument put forward is that if the decision of the National Assembly to designate Hlophe is found to be irrational, then the other 5 designees to the JSC must also be removed as they were deployed as a collective. There was also much debate around whether the Western Cape High Court judgment on the 27th of September is deemed an interim order, which means it cannot be appealed. The lawyer representing the JSC argued that the ruling remains in place, which is why the commissioners unanimously decided to forge ahead with the interviews next week.
And initially, the suggestion in the founding affidavit for the MK Party was that the JSC is irrational because it could not be bound by a judgment of which it wasn't a party. And you will see that my learned friend hasn't persisted in that because clearly wrong, because the judgment of the Western Cape High Court makes clear that the JSC was a respondent, and it abided the decision of the court, and that means it's bound by that decision. The second point they make is that somehow the application for leave to appeal suspended that order. You will see in the letter to the JSC, and this is very important, in the letter to the JSC, and perhaps I can just point the court to that letter, they went certain themselves on the implications of the application for leave to appeal. I flagged it, but as always, yes. But the only point I make is that they said it's unclear. It may be suspended, perhaps it's not suspended. They were not categoric that the application for leave to appeal has suspended the order, because if that was the case, their demand would have been a different one, my lord, to the JSC. It wouldn't have been postpone the Judicial Service, postpone the proceedings.
The DA also challenged why the MK party had not opted to knock on the doors of the National Assembly to try and replace the name of Hlophe in order to ensure that the organization was still represented at the JSC interviews. They've also argued that the decision by the Commission is rational because it weighed the consequences of having Hlophe form part of the sitting in spite of a court order.
Because the risk we're talking about here, if we're going to be honest about it, the risk is down the line, judges who are appointed might have their appointments set aside. And that risk is so minute, because even if you get to that point, you have to review not only the meeting, you have to review the appointment decision. And what court is going to actually set aside the appointment of a judge because of this kind of technicality? The risk is, I would say, close to zero. The second issue is the participation of Justice Hlophe. So the argument here by the applicants is that if Justice Hlophe is not on the JSC on Monday, then the JSC will be acting unlawfully, and anything it does will be unlawful. And so you should postpone until he can participate. It's very interesting, as Mr. Manecha again pointed out, that the relief sought is not Justice Hlophe must participate. The relief sought is don't do anything because he can't participate. But the argument is obviously bad for two reasons. The first is that the Western Cape Full Court has held that it can proceed. The point of the urgent proceedings, and this was abundantly clear in the papers, was abundantly clear to everybody who was in front of the Western Cape High Court, was that the applicants wanted the proceedings to go ahead next week. But we wanted them to go ahead without Justice Hlophe.
The MK party has threatened to protest outside the sittings scheduled to take place from Monday in Johannesburg. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo in Johannesburg.